Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the show. This is Reservations, and I'm Rain Whalen.
Oh, you son of a bitch.
You know what? It's fine. Cut it, print it. Let's just keep going. I feel like to make this episode truly accurate and truly respective of the material, that we should have a mistake in there. Just keep it in.
Except it's not a mistake. You planned that, didn't you?
It doesn't matter.
Well, then that would mean hopefully Future Rain would have the wherewithal to have also made a mistake by this point as well.
Maybe. There'll be some continuity errors or something.
Yeah, we're gonna cut to one shot and I'll be in a jacket.
That's right.
That's it's one of my favorite Bo Burnham jokes from his special before Inside, where he's like, you know what continuity is, right? It's when in one shot it looks one way and another shot's another way, and in that 2-second frame he's wearing a jacket and then he's not.
That's
and he's like, yeah, anyway. Oh my god.
Not bad. I'm not even that big of a fan of Bo Burnham. We know that.
Welcome back to the show, everyone.
Yeah.
Before we get into it, buddy, I did just want to say this because she was also kind of a big deal on the show as well. If anyone remembers, I'm pretty sure no one does, but if anyone remembers my cat Cora that would kind of chime in those very early episodes of the show, relative to this recording, she passed away. From what my brother told me, I guess at some point she had gotten diabetes and there were some complications, and
sorry,
I'm
uncomfortable. And also, I told you earlier, I'm laughing because I didn't know cats could actually get diabetes. I used to joke that Ebenezer, my cat, is going to get diabetes because he's so fat, and they actually can get diabetes, and I didn't know that. I didn't know you can get.
He's got to start taking him on walks now.
Nope.
It'll be like that Vine. Y'all be like just like dragging him across the grass.
Yeah.
That cat's just like.
Yeah, we've taken him outside before in a harness, and that's exactly what it does. So
he's just like, no.
He's like,
But yeah, everyone.
Yeah, it's a bone, man, because Cora was super sweet, super nice. When I would see her, and when she was still at your old apartment, I would go visit, and she would always sit with me and let me pet her, and she was super, super sweet. Maybe you can put up a picture, of course, so people know what we're talking about.
Because those are real early days. Yeah, it was real early days of the show. No video, so
yeah,
people would just hear her. But yeah, it didn't. I'm not trying to bum everyone out before we get into this, but she was our cat for if my father is correct, 17 years.
It's a long time.
So that means we got her when I was 13 and my brother was 5 or 6.
So hold on. So when you were 15, if anybody follows you on Instagram, you recently posted a picture of you meeting that band. What was the band?
So that band's called Crown the Empire.
Okay.
I came across it a while back. That was the first concert, and maybe Future Rain will put up that photo. It was the first concert that Ashley and I ever attended as a couple.
Cute.
And those guys, like they were just about to pop off. Like they were really big in tech. They like I'm being 100% serious. Like they were really big. They were really big in Texas, which is where they're from. They're from Dallas. And when we saw them, all the only album they had to their names was an EP, called Oh my god.
Oh.
Shut your fucking mouth. Um. Oh my god, where are they? Oh shit. It was called Limitless, and again, hopefully, Future will put a picture of that. But that's all they had. It was just a seven song EP.
Yeah.
And so when we saw them, they had just signed to a label, and they were about to go into the studio and start making their debut album. And then right after that, they popped off. But then, as most bands in the early 2000s, they popped off and then they plateaued, and they've just kind of stayed right here.
You know,
they did just have a new.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say they did just have a new album come out. It's all right from what I've heard. Like it's not like the greatest thing I've ever heard, but I mean it's all right.
But you're a day oneer, bro. You're ground floor, man. I'm following a band right now on TikTok of all places. Dexter and the Moon Rocks. Go check them out. So the drummer started a TikTok page where he would find videos of like hot tattooed women and then put them up on a wall. And eventually these girls knew he was doing this and started lip syncing to their music. And so it's so now he's keeping you up to date with who's the pretty lady, the pretty tattooed ladies on TikTok. And then also like this whole reason is just for you to follow go listen to our music, like go check us out on Spotify, go check us out on this stuff. And now they're actually touring. They're doing they're getting a pretty big following now because they am. So and they're not bad. Dexter and the Moon Rock.
So. Maybe we should start a podcast for the TikTok for the podcast.
Maybe we should, because it works. I mean, got to get a gimmick, you know.
I mean, I have a personal TikTok that I've made a few TikToks to, and the one that blew up was the supercut I made of all your intros for season 7. So
yeah.
So maybe.
But, maybe. Wait, how many views did that get? One of them was me, by the way.
I don't fucking know. I mean, I deleted my TikTok app. Well, I deleted it. Last time I checked, I think it was like 700 or something like that.
What?
Yeah.
Wow. That's pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah, that's almost as much as our highest watched episode on YouTube.
It's like all of them, the rest of them combined.
Probably. Yeah, probably.
Yeah. So anyway, what are we talking about today?
So today we are talking about hang on, I had to look it up the last time I fucking said it. The 1994 Tim Burton biopic. I think his first one for now. We'll get to his second one later on. But his first biopic, Ed Wood. Every time I tell someone that's what we're doing, I emphasize Ed and Wood, because it sounds like, if I don't, it sounds weird. So I'm like, Ed Wood. So buddy, kind of going back to last season, you saw this, but I haven't.
Mm-hmm.
So what was your first impression the first time you saw this?
I loved it. I loved the black and white cinematography. I love the music. Right, this is Howard Shore. This time it's not Danny Elfman, which is unusual for Tim Burton to not use Elfman for music. Loved it. I loved Martin Landau's performance as Bela Lugosi. At that time, I had seen it. I didn't know a lot about filmmaking, film history, film production. I just liked the tone and the atmosphere of it. I loved the idea of this guy who's just so passionate about filmmaking that he just loves everything about it, and so it doesn't matter how good or how bad it is. In some instances, he just likes doing it, which I like.
Yeah.
Of course, it matters a little bit, but this time around, it was, this is a good 2023 movie, because of who Ed Wood is and what his quirks are, and Bill Murray's character, and especially their the first feature length film that they make, Glen or Glenda, right? It's good for the time,
Yeah.
But I loved it. What did you think this time? This is your first
time? Yes, I loved it too, man. Of course, I love anything that Tim Burton does. Put that with an asterisk. I refuse to watch Dumbo, just because from that first trailer, I knew like, there's no way this is gonna be good.
Yeah.
So I'm shielding myself from it to not taint my view of Tim Burton.
Yeah.
But I loved it. I mean, of course, Johnny Depp playing someone honestly so upbeat,
yeah,
was so different and so refreshing, because I think we associate Johnny with such a dark range of characters, and which Ed is
ironic because he was so unbelievably depressed during the filming of this movie, because he had just broken up with Winona Ryder.
Yeah.
So if you will remember, a few weeks ago, we had discussed Edward Scissorhands, and they were engaged in Edward Scissorhands by the end of that, and now in the beginning of Ed Wood, they are divorced or broken up. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, it really is. And speaking of breakups,
go ahead.
I was just gonna speaking of breakups, because you mentioned this, and that Elfman didn't do the soundtrack for this.
Yeah,
it's because this was during the little period of time. Because I was like, I remember hearing about this, and I double checked my shelf. This is during the period of time where Tim and Danny weren't talking. Because Danny was so upset with Tim essentially rolling over to the heads at Disney on Nightmare, that Danny was just so mad that he was like, I'm not working with you anymore.
Wow.
Well, I don't know if it was I'm not working with you anymore, but it definitely was, I'm not speaking to you right now. So, because then I'm 90% certain when we get to my next pick, I think Elfman's back, because then they kind of made up.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, good.
Yep. So
yeah.
So this is during.
Yeah. So before I had to bring this up before we get too much into this, and I forget. Speaking of relationships on set, this is going to make you mad, or at least it would make me mad, because Tim Burton is so weird looking, but he was dating Lisa Marie at this time.
Really?
Yeah.
Dude, okay. How does he get all of these women? I don't know. Because then after this, because I guess after Lisa, it's Helena,
I guess.
And then they just broke up, and now he's with Ava Green.
No.
Like, yeah.
Didn't know that.
1,000,000%. That's why she's the lead in Miss Peregrine, because I think it was supposed to be oh, no shit. My bad. It's Monica Bellucci.
What?
He's been dating her for the last year.
I'm sorry. You see Monica Bellucci?
Yeah.
Okay, hold on.
Yeah.
Monica Bellucci, irreversible Monica Bellucci.
Yes, he's been dating her since last year.
Used to be married to Vincent Cassell, Monica Bellucci.
Yes, and she's dating Tim Burton.
Okay.
But that
There is
brings me
no
back to my
excuse,
point.
guys. Fellas, if you're out there, there is clearly no excuse. You know? Just try.
Yeah.
Just try. Anyway,
Oh, that's
now that we're done, that is crazy. I didn't know that. If you would please grace us with the quick synopsis, this won't take long.
I shall. Ed Wood follows the the budding career of Edward D. Wood Jr. And as Jeremy said, he is very passionate about movies and movie making. He doesn't care if they're good or bad. He just wants to make them. He'll take whatever job. He will swindle anyone he needs to, make false promises, do whatever he can because he is just so passionate about making movies. That these are what are commonly referred to as B and then of course Z movies, very low budget, low tiered movies. But to Ed, it's art, which of course, I mean, good for him. Like he doesn't care. This is what he wants. And so the movie primarily follows essentially two of his biggest movies. His directorial debut, Glenn or Glinda, and apparently, arguably, what people have said is his quote unquote best movie, Plan 9 from Outer Space. And, the movie has some great old school, old Hollywood stories. Apparently, I meant to look this up, but I guess Ed had a friendship with Bela Lugosi, which is insane.
Yeah,
and
that's true.
And that,
by the way,
that is they were like best friends.
I mean, I don't know about best friends, but they were friends. Yeah. The thing that isn't true is that no one went to his funeral. That's not true. There were a ton of people there at Bela Lugosi's funeral.
I was gonna say, you mean to tell me the man who pretty much gave the pedestal to Christopher Lee to play Dracula, that no one was at his funeral?
Yeah, no, there were tons of people there. Peter Lorre was one of the people at his funeral, So,
no shit.
Yeah. So yeah, that's not true
at
all. There weren't a lot of people there.
But yeah, so that's Ed Wood. I mean, we'll get into more of it. I think. So I guess we'll go ahead and get into it. I feel like the reason why you and I like this so much is because it almost feels like, in a way, that Tim is not only doing a biopic, but he is almost like a kindred spirit with Ed, in a way.
Yeah. I would agree with that, because what similarities they have are, a maybe sometimes not clear vision, but a clear, this is what I want, right? Sort of vision. Mm-hmm. Whether or not, if it comes out correctly, is, up to interpretation. But Tim Burton has a very unique style that even in something with a recognizable intellectual property like Batman, you can still see a lot of Tim Burton in that, right? Pee Wee Herman's the same thing. But Ed Wood, his style was sort of just, like they portrayed in the movie. It's just like, we got one take. That was good. His style was like, yep, we got it.
I love that his DP was like, do you want one more? No, why? It was perfect.
Yeah, it's perfect. Let's go. And again, the passion, of course, is there, I think, for both filmmakers. But what I most loved about this movie is that, and Roger Ebert said it in his review, 3.5 stars, by the way. Um, that's out of 4.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, so that's really good. Is that he's not making fun of Ed Wood. He's, you know, he's showing him in a realistic way, but also giving him respect, right? Showing his passion, showing his never wavering respect of filmmaking and his optimism, right? You know, there's I'm jumping way ahead, but when they're shooting Bride of the Monster, and they have the octopus and there's no motor, that would shut down a regular production for a day. Let's go get the motor. But he's like, we're already here.
Yeah.
Bella, if you can just like move the arms around a little bit, all right, that'd be great. Thanks. You know, and he's happy again because, you know, it was such a small setback to him, and he's just like, it's okay. Let's just go ahead and do this, and we're fine. You know?
Yeah. As where everyone else is like, well, where's the motor? There's no motor? Well, what are we going to do? Yeah. And he's just like, whatever.
You know? We'll move the arms around. It'll be fine. You know? Which I love. So, okay. What do I have in my notes here? I have, we can go to that later. These aren't really in order. I love that the opening is a parody of Plan 9, right?
Yeah.
The opening titles. I love that, right? Yeah, sure. Unfortunately, it's got Jeffrey Jones in the beginning. Who cares? But I love the opening. I love the tombstone thing. I love the saucers on string. I love the miniatures. That he blends it perfectly with the opening shot of Johnny Depp out in front of the theater. Excellent work. Excellent transition between the two.
You know what it reminded me a lot of? It reminded me a lot of, and I'm sure we talked about it when we did the movie, the opening shot of Beetlejuice, of that seamless transition from the town to the miniature town. So it was so good.
And okay, so this part made me laugh, and I'd forgot it was in the movie, but they put in a real world criticism for Sarah Jessica Parker, and she had to read, does my face really look like a horse? And it made me, I completely forgot that was in there. For those of you who don't know, she has been criticized for years. The joke is she has a horse face. So I can hear your dogs.
Sorry if everyone can hear the dogs. Whenever Ashley comes home for the day, she usually leaves the blinds open to the patio, and the dogs like to bark at passerbys. But yeah, no, I love that too, because all I could think of was that fucking Seth MacFarlane's Cavalcade of Comedy, the whole like a horse walks into a bar and there's actually a horse in the bar, and it's being really aggressive towards the other drinkers. They're like, why do you have so many drinks? He's like, doy, hooves, no fucking fingers. And then they're like, hey, like, we got off on the wrong foot. Like, I'm Jim, this is Joe. Like, what's your name? And he's like, Sarah Jessica Parker.
No.
So good.
But I like that she's now, I mean, there's confirmation she's aware of it, right? And they put that real world thing in the movie. I like that. Okay, so I love that we are opening on Ed Wood showing his play. It's like an opening night for his play, and it's not very good, right? But what I love is that, you know, he's on the side, you know, reciting every single line, right, which will become a thing that he just does throughout the movie. And again, it's just showing that passion, right? It's just, I don't know, man. It's very inspiring. As terrible as his movies are, it's a commitment to a dream, right?
Yeah.
Full force, 100% commitment, right? Um, which again I really really liked and I really appreciated, that they're not shying away from that, right? He's not just a bad filmmaker, right? Um, he
And
loves it.
yeah, and I was gonna say what I found so interesting is that he he doesn't see himself as a bad filmmaker.
Yeah,
You know, no matter how many times he's told throughout the movie it was the worst movie I've ever seen. That kind of thing. It doesn't. I mean, it gets him down. We have those few scenes where he's like,
yeah,
oh, like maybe they're right,
right.
but it doesn't. It doesn't keep him from moving forward.
Uh-huh.
You know,
Yeah, I
he
agree.
probably he gets down for a little bit, but then he's like, all right, well let's make a better movie then.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's down for maybe like an hour, and then he's like, no, no, no,
yeah.
no, no, let's just keep going, you know.
Uh, and I think that's something that's also kind of refreshing. If the real Ed Wood was like that, I mean, I wouldn't put it past him. But it's also refreshing for this genre of movie, a
Mhm.
biopic. Um, as we did a whole 2.5 hour episode over biopics years ago.
Yeah.
This, anytime he would get down in a standard biopic, he'd be down for the count for like the
Oh wow.
whole next act of the
Sure.
movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
As where Tim is like, no, you get this 5-minute scene. He's feeling depressed. All right, we're moving on.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And that's sort of it's his philosophy of filmmaking, which is like, we got it, cut, print, let's go, right?
Yeah.
Um, so things that I thought weren't very true turned out to be true, which is, when he was in World War II, he actually did wear women's underwear underneath his uniform. Um,
Really?
that is absolutely true. Yes. Uh,
That's
yeah.
then I would assume then what he said to George was true. I wasn't afraid to get shot. I was afraid to get hurt, and they would
Yeah.
take off my uniform.
Yeah.
So I would assume that would be true too. Then.
I mean, I would assume, but it is like he confirmed that's true, which is crazy, right?
Yeah.
But again, like, that's just so interesting because it's it's sort of like, I don't know. I love that it's this sort of like positive representation, right, of these sort
Mm-hmm.
of these people with different, I don't know, quirks. That's probably a bad word for it. Um, but it's not even. I wouldn't even say it's part of his sexuality, because it might be in a sexual connotation, but really it's just that he just feels comfortable in it, right? He
Yeah.
has that throwaway line which shouldn't have been thrown away, which is, his mom made him dress
Wanted a
up in
girl. Yeah.
girly stuff. That's psychologically important, right? And that's why he feels comfortable in women's clothing.
Mm-hmm.
But I like that they really hammer down that it's, he's not gay, he's not homosexual, he's not transgender like, Bill Murray's character. Um, he just likes it and he's comfortable in it, and it makes him feel safe, right? Um,
Yeah.
which does make him right to direct Glenn or Glenda. Um,
Yeah.
and I just want to say, if you do look up Glenn or Glenda, or if you've seen it, maybe you have out there, who knows? Um, Tim Burton nailed it. Nailed it. The shot for shot stuff is perfect. Um,
Nice. Yeah, I was going to ask you. I was going to save it till later, but I'll go ahead and ask you now. Have you seen any of Ed's actual movies?
no. Um, doing like looking things up for this, I looked up Glenn or Glenda like just on IMDb, and they had still shots from the movie, and I mean they look identical to what Tim Burton did, so he did a really good job. Speaking of, Lisa Marie is a perfect Vampira. She looks exactly like her. It's crazy how much she looks
So
like.
speaking of Vampira, so
Mhm,
when they introduce her, I was like, and of course this gets answered towards the end.
mhm.
I was like Vampira, don't is was this who Elvira was before this? And then at the very end, it's revealed that Elvira's, yeah, completely different, and
But
that
no, she's not.
Vampira, yeah,
Yeah.
but Vampire tried to sue her for stealing her thing
Sorry, probably heard that.
unsuccessfully, apparently.
Yeah, which I was also going to say this till later, but that sounds crazy to me that she was unsuccessful in suing because it is the exact same thing. I don't, uh, I don't understand why people wouldn't see that that's not the same. Um, hosting hosting horror movie nights, in
Yeah,
a skin tight black dress that's low cut with black hair. How is that not the same thing? You know, their names are even
yeah.
similar. I don't know. Listen, I love Elvira. Um, I think she's awesome. Um, she's like I've seen her in interviews. She seems super sweet. Whatever. I don't know. She stole it. She stole the idea. She stole the shtick. I don't see how
she
uh, Vampira didn't get money from
she
that.
she was Zuckerberging before Zuckerberg.
As it seems. Um, okay, let's transition a little bit to
Okay.
Bela Lugosi,
Oh,
Martin
man.
Landau, Bela Lugosi. After doing some research, I have issues. I have qualms. Um,
Okay.
I didn't think I would have qualms, but it's a little thing, and I can see why it was done. But I don't. They
I think I
could
know
have.
what you're gonna say.
Yeah, they could have. It was unnecessary to add it for fun. Is his use of foul language? Um,
Yeah.
Bela Lugosi swears a lot in this movie, and there are multiple people who knew him that said he never swore. Like he'd never use cuss words. Like he like that was a big thing for him. Like he wouldn't. He considered himself a real gentleman, and he wouldn't talk like that. And so I was like, well, then why do that? Then why change that? I understand that it's for comedic purposes. You don't expect him to talk this way, and then when he does, it's sort of like, oh, you know, yeah, fuck Boris Karloff. I don't care. Um, but it seems like it it seems mean to his memory to do that. But that's my only issue with it.
Yeah. I mean, I did read that.
Mhm.
I didn't really have an issue with it per se. I was
Okay.
just more like, oh, okay. But then, yeah, I did read that because even his son, Bela Lugosi Jr., was like, my dad never talked like that. Like,
Yeah.
he was very classy. He never,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. I mean, I agree. It was definitely for comedic purposes because you're like, oh,
Mhm.
Dracula just said "fuck you," like, oh,
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
but
and
yeah, no, I
it's misrepresentation, right? Which I guess I have a problem with because if it were me, I'd be like, no, 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 that's not right. You know, it's almost like reading something that was written about you that's blatantly not true. Like, wouldn't you feel terrible about that? You would want to fix it
yeah,
immediately. Um, so I mean, that I had a problem with. I think Martin Landau's fucking awesome, um, and he deserved the Academy Award.
well, and,
The first, I think he was the first actor to ever win an Academy Award for playing another actor.
mm-hmm,
The second was Kate Blanchett for The Aviator when she played Katharine Hepburn.
yeah.
Um,
I was gonna say you got to say it like Quentin Tarantino, Kate Blanchett.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, I agree, man. Martin Landau killed it. I don't think I've ever seen him in anything else,
Oh,
so
okay.
this would be the first movie I've seen him in. But I loved it. There's a lot I know about Bela Lugosi. Because I love the Universal monsters.
Yeah,
I think there's
definitely.
so much. there's so much mythos surrounding all of those actors.
Mhm.
And of course, as many people have probably seen, I'm gonna try to get it in a good frame. Well, you can't now. I'll have Future Rain put up a picture. I have a tattoo of the Bride of Frankenstein, played from Frankenstein, Frankenstein 2, the Bride of Frankenstein. Um, and I've been thinking about adding Bela Lugosi to my arm somewhere.
Why not Frankenstein?
With it,
Well,
yeah,
Frankenstein's monster.
yeah. I mean, I don't know. No, that's nothing against Boris Karloff. I mean, the man has a fucking Grammy for the uh the Grinch Who Stole Christmas
Yeah.
soundtrack. Um, I don't know, but it's just because I think Bella, especially Bella, and they really kind of touched on it a little bit, is the most mysterious
Mm-hmm.
actor from that old Hollywood time. Of course, I was kind of hoping they would have touched on it, but they didn't. Bella's obsession with the occult,
Mm-hmm.
um, which
Well,
of
no time.
course,
He was too busy hooked on morphine, which is true. He actually did. He did go to rehab. He did have a drug problem. Um, so that's true. And what? Again, like I said in the beginning of the movie or the beginning of the show, that it is true that he and Ed Wood were friends. You know what I mean? Normally,
mhm,
in a biopic, you would sort of fictionalize a friendship to move the story along. For instance, Paul Avery and oh shit, what is his name? He wrote the book in Zodiac. Uh, Jake Gyllenhaal's character.
oh,
Shit, whatever.
I don't, yeah,
I know now it's gonna drive me fucking crazy because I've seen that movie 100 times and I can't remember his goddamn name. Relax, shut up. But anyway, um, they weren't friends, right? In real life.
yeah. Because we talked about that when we did that. They just knew of one another, right?
Yes. Hold on, it's pulling up. Robert Graysmith. Um,
Ah,
so yeah, Paul Avery and Robert Graysmith were not friends, right? However, for the movie to work and to move the story along and to interconnect plot points, they had to be friends, right?
right.
You would think the same thing is happening here because, like, how would Ed Wood even meet Bela Lugosi? Like, that doesn't make any sense. And maybe yes, they worked together, but they weren't really friends. That's not true. They were friends, um, which is pretty cool to think about.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
Yeah, I just assumed it was fake, and then when I read it wasn't, I was like, oh shit, look at that. Yeah.
Well, and it's also, I could see why you might think it's fake because, sure, maybe during this time, it's true that Bela Lugosi had sort of fallen out of the public eye, but, you know, I mean, maybe I'm looking at it through the lens of like today,
Mhm.
but like, why would an actor of his stature want to agree to be in a movie like uh, Glenn or Glinda and Bride of the Monster?
Mhm.
Um, it almost seems sort of beneath him, but at the same time, he also shares a passion of filmmaking, which I think is what draws Ed Wood to him. Uh, and also, I think it's more of a I'll do anything, like to be in a movie again.
Yeah, kind of. There's some desperation there, financial need. But
Mm-hmm.
then, of course, you're right, a shared passion for filmmaking and for telling stories, right? Um, God, I just can't tell you how much I love just Ed Wood's attitude towards filmmaking. It's fun, you know. Um,
Yeah, it's. I would say it's almost. It would be like the three of us, you, me, and Alex, the three of us, our love of and passion of filmmaking, all bottled into one,
yeah.
essentially. But unlike Ed, I think the three of us do care about quality.
Now, I think he does care about quality in a way because he wants people to like it, right? He's upset when people don't like it, but
Right.
what he's lacking is attention to detail. You know, he's
Yeah,
thinking big picture.
yeah.
He's thinking, oh, people aren't going to notice that. All they care about is he thinks people see movies the way he does, which is he just loves seeing movies, right? I don't think
Hmm.
Wood is paying attention to small details when he goes to see a movie, right? When he watches Citizen Kane, which is his favorite movie by his favorite filmmaker, I think he doesn't pay attention to little things, um, and intricacies in the film. He just loves the overall big picture stuff and the rise and fall of Kane, and I don't think he cares about how slick it was and how perfectly put together Citizen Kane is. Um, he's just like Robert Foster Kane is an amazing character, and that's all I care about, right? Um,
Yeah. Well, and I mean, and it's almost, and I love that you brought that up too, because in sort of a bit of indirect inspiration,
mm,
in the film, which of course I don't know if you wrote this down or if you looked up if it's true or not. When
I didn't see
he
if it was true.
meets Orson, okay, he meets Orson Welles in the movie, which, man, shout out to Vincent D'Onofrio, dude. I love that guy
Well,
so much.
I do too, but hold on, keep going.
Well, no, no, I know that
Okay,
even though he looks almost identical to how
yeah,
Orson Welles looked during that time, I did read that Tim was very disappointed in his vocal
yeah,
interpretation of Orson Welles, so he got dubbed, um, by a different
dude.
actor.
Once you know, it's so obvious and off-putting.
I know,
The
dude.
dubbing.
I because there are tiny moments where his mouth and the words don't match up properly,
I'm
and then
gonna
the cadence of it
uh,
doesn't
I'm
match.
I'm gonna pretend that it's like that because Ed Wood wouldn't care if they matched up perfectly. So it's part of
Yeah,
the sort of overall theme of the movie,
yeah,
But
but
I'm sure that was a mistake.
yeah, but anyway, so I was just bringing that up because he meets, as you said, his favorite filmmaker of his favorite movie, and Orson. Of course, Orson doesn't really know who this guy is, but once again, kind of like with Bella, a shared passion
Yes.
of filmmaking, and Orson sort of indirectly inspires him
Yeah.
to do it your way. Who cares what they say? Do it your way.
But what was so funny about that interaction is Orson is talking about real life studio filmmaking, and Ed Wood is talking about he's getting the money from these Baptists, um, you know, but they're using similar words, and so one thinks that they might. Ed also knows that he is talking about real life studio filmmaking, like Warner Brothers, right?
Uh-huh.
Orson also probably thinks Ed Wood is talking about big studio filmmaking, like Universal or whatever. Only Ed knows he's talking about those Baptists that he got the money from, right? It's so
Yeah,
funny. This sort of they're having they're almost having two different conversations. It's the same conversation, but they're using words that they're defining differently, and I just love how that played out. Also, do you know? I know because I wrote it down, and I've seen the movie before. Do you know what movie he was talking about with Charlton Heston?
give me a second.
Okay,
I'm not gonna look it up.
okay,
Um, Spartacus?
nope. So,
No.
um, Orson
Hang on.
Welles
Wait. Give
is
me one more.
oh,
All I can think of, the only movie that popped into my head was Chariots of Fire.
no.
Okay.
So, Orson Welles is referring to, and they did do it. Charlton Heston does play a Mexican detective in Touch of Evil, which is what the movie was
Oh.
talking about. So I like that if you knew what Touch of Evil was, you're like, yep, and they did it. They sure did. He's in brown face in that whole movie. Janet Leigh is also in that movie.
Because Orson he didn't want Charlton Heston, but the producers were like, too bad.
According to this movie, I don't know how real that is.
Yeah, the producers like that Charlton Heston. He's so hot right now.
Just going around with a razor scooter in his backpack. Yeah,
that is
Charlton Heston.
One of that's my favorite reoccurring bit in that whole movie. Hansel's so hot right now.
Oh my god. Okay, so let's see, what else did I write?
Okay,
down?
well, so you
keep
going. While you're looking at that, you talked about your qualms. I want to bring up my qualm because I did also have one qualm with the movie.
Okay.
My qualm is, why do you think they didn't touch on his alcoholism? Because I did read that Dolores, his girlfriend, who's played by Sarah Jessica Parker, Dolores didn't leave him because of the cross-dressing. Mm-hmm. She left him because of his alcoholism. She actually, apparently, from what I read, was more okay with it than how they portrayed it in the movie. Mm-hmm. But she left him because of his drinking, that it was getting out of control.
Okay, cool. I like that we're asking each other questions. This is more fun. So I have some answers.
Okay.
I have some answers. So maybe they're telling a certain story, right? Tim Burton is telling a specific story, right? Mm-hmm. I heard a screenwriting teacher, or he might have been a playwright. He teaches playwriting, or he teaches screenwriting. And when telling a true story, he says that saying you're writing something because it's true that's not good enough, right? I don't care if it's true. Is it interesting? Or does it move the plot forward, right? If those answers are no, take it out, right? I don't care if it's accurate. It doesn't matter, right? So which is kind of weird to think about, right? Because you want to be accurate. You want to tell a story with as much truth and as much honesty as you can. But sorry, God, my emails keep going off. But the fact that, real life doesn't flow in a singular tone or a through line of plot, right? So to have her, Dolores, to have her leave Ed because, number one, she didn't like the cross-dressing. Number two, she didn't like the filmmaking. She didn't like the work, right? She thought that he makes crap movies and she doesn't like that. I think it's to juxtapose her with Kathy. What's her name?
Yeah.
Later, right? Because she's the opposite, right? She loves that. She loves the optimism. She loves the passion. She loves that he's chasing a dream no matter what. She loves that he's putting all of himself into something, and it doesn't matter. It almost doesn't matter what the outcome is. Of course, it kind of does, but in a way, it's like, we did it, right? And of course, she doesn't mind the cross-dressing, right? All she cares about is he's still attracted to her, and that's all that matters, right?
Right.
And I think it's because we want there to be an exact opposite, right? We want to feel good about who he ends up with for the rest of his life, which is what happens in real life. That part is true, that they stay together until his death and she never remarries. I do think that it's just, we need opposites. His alcoholism doesn't fit the narrative that Tim Burton wants to tell about Ed Wood, right? Ed Wood,
right?
He wants to focus on passion, optimism, perseverance, and filmmaking. Mm-hmm. Yes, we can do we can do substance abuse with Bela Lugosi because that's really important to his character's arc or his character's story, right?
Right.
To have two characters with substance abuse, I don't know if that works, right? So
Right.
that was a long way of
Yeah.
saying it's because it's not important.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and like when I say qualm, I mean like it didn't take me out of the movie in any way.
Mm-hmm.
It was just like, but why wouldn't they have touched on it? I mean, and they kind of do when like, towards the end of the movie when he storms out of the Plan 9 set and first thing he goes to is a bar.
Yeah.
So they do kind of touch on it, but I was just like, why wouldn't they? But then again, this is the 90s. I'm sure, we've seen biopics by this point of substance abuse.
Sure, all of them by that time.
Yeah.
It's just not. It's not interesting nor important to this story of Ed Wood, right?
Right.
That would be my answer. Now, I'm also not sure about the rivalry between Dolores and that other woman. I don't remember her name.
Neither do I.
A rivalry for his affection or his attention that I'm not sure about. Didn't see anything about that. Vampira story makes me sad. Because that's a successful gig, the being the host of this late night monster movie show, Of course she doesn't like it, right? Because it's not fulfilling and it's not any good. Probably better than what she ended up doing, which is making movies with Ed Wood. But and it fucking shit. It's dude. When we see her at that party and she's not wearing her black hair or her eyebrows, I'm like, dude, this is Elvira. Elvira stole all of this because she looks nothing like Elvira. Also, right? She doesn't have. She has red hair, right? She doesn't dress like that outside of the character. They fucking stole it. She might not have herself, but you have to be blind not to see that it's the same character, and that still drives me crazy.
And what's so interesting too, I mean, this is kind of off topic, but Elvira has had longevity.
Yes.
I never knew of Vampira until this movie.
Wow. Yeah.
So I mean, Elvira
had the show. Elvira had specials. Elvira had movies, right?
Yeah.
And I forgot her name, but she's even like on Shudder's 100 Greatest, movie scares, or she's on the History of Horror show. I mean, she's still doing stuff in terms of with Elvira. She's not dressed as Elvira, but she's, there as one of the horror experts talking about, the movies. And so she did a better job with her career and how that trajectory went. But it's the same fucking thing, man. I don't, she must have had a horrible lawyer. Vampira did.
Yeah.
Because, dude, if anybody knows, or if anybody does more research than I did, which is zero, and can tell me what went wrong for Vampira, let me know. That'd be great. Zach, get on it.
He probably has already come up with the answer, and hopefully maybe by this point he's already texted you like, dude, this is why.
Yeah. By this time tomorrow he'll give me an answer. That'd be great. So something I wrote down was this movie is the first thing I wrote down was the word nostalgic. This movie is nostalgic, and I'll tell you what I mean by that. For me, personally, is nostalgic because especially the opening and the music reminds me of every like kids Halloween special I've ever seen on like Disney Channel, Nickelodeon, all that stuff. This is like the vibe it gives off, right? Um,
Oh, okay.
the stormy night, the rain, the theremin and the music. Um, it's very campy and over the top, you know.
Mm-hmm.
There's like some Donald Duck shorts, Halloween shorts that are like this that are really good. Mickey Mouse has some.
Yeah.
Any Disney Channel horror movie, you know, Mom's on Date with a Vampire, fucking Under Wraps, Halloween Town, of course. You know,
Yeah, I do.
Phantom of the Megaplex, Don't Look Under the Bed. These are just examples. But anyway, it's very nostalgic, right? And again, the black and white cinematography is very cool. The opening monologue that Jeffrey Jones gives is reminiscent of the one that his character's character gives in Plan 9 from Outer Space, which I really liked. The only character I didn't know a lot about, and he was fleshed out for the movie just because it's Bill Murray, is Bill Murray's character.
Yeah. Well, I just looked it up too, because you know, in the "Where Are They Now" part of the end of the movie, you know, it said that he still does something. I don't remember.
In '94.
Yeah, but he died 2 years later. He died in '96.
Damn.
But yeah. He
So he was just like a friend of Ed Wood's. Like, what did he do? Do you know?
Okay. I mean, I could probably look it up right now, but then people would just be.
That's fine. It's sort of ambiguous.
Hearing silence.
It's ambiguous and it's not important, right, to the story. Who cares what he does? He's able to get him transvestites when he needs transvestites.
So I was gonna say, I feel like, yeah, I feel like he's Ed's, you know, main contact. Like, you know, people, this is what I need. Get me what I need.
And he wasn't supposed to be in the movie that much, but Bill Murray is so Bill Murray that, you know, you can't take your eyes off him. He's just so compelling. So
yeah, you don't want to pull a Quantumania and use him for one fucking scene.
Sure, yeah.
Have you still not seen Quantumania?
Who fucking cares?
He's in it for like a grand total of like 10 minutes, and then he's gone.
Yeah, that's not enough time for Bill Murray.
Even though they highly like promoted the fact that he was in the movie. And then he's in it for like 10 minutes.
Yeah, I mean that's
very disappointed.
When marketing goes wrong, you know, marketing makes a big difference. I was just talking about that today. We had a few students stop by our table. I went to Allen High School today, and you know, there were students that wanted to do marketing, and I go, well, have fun, but you know, be careful. You know, don't misrepresent something. I didn't really tell them that, but it's important, right?
Yeah.
That
man. I love seeing Bill Murray in this new kind of way, as sort of a secondary character, but in his own view, he's the main character. You know, you know, Bunny, is his nickname, Bunny. That's how he is. You know, Ed. You know, obviously we're gonna follow Ed.
Yeah, of course.
But anytime Bill is in a scene, he steals every scene.
Yeah, definitely. And a lot of that is the wardrobe. So with this sort of cinematography, his outfits just pop off the screen because they're so bright, right? And his hair and his, I mean, I wonder if because they caked on makeup for Bela Lugosi, for Martin Landau. They put him a very unnaturally white face to have it sort of resonate on screen, right? To make it seem a little more otherworldly. Because that's how Ed sees him, is, you know, this sort of, I can't believe I'm talking to Bela Lugosi right now. It sort of gives him a ghoulish sort of an effect. The same is almost for Bunny, because he's, you know, he's like radioactive bright on screen. Yeah. Let's see what else we have. Talked about the music, so good. Howard Shore, great choice for this.
Yeah, if anyone wants another really good example, watch all the Lord of the Rings movies.
Yeah, yeah. Howard Shore is amazing. He did. Howard Shore did the music for, I think, the Dark Knight trilogy as well.
No, that
No,
was
who
Hans
was
Zimmer.
that? Hans Zimmer. You're right. I got him confused. Um, sorry, don't come at me in the comments. It's my bad.
How could you not know?
Type. I'm mad. Type. All right. Let's see what else. I have nothing else really that important. I like the fact that they bring up Christine Jorgensen as a real life example of gender reassignment, which I really liked, and how that was big at the time, and how because of that, that's why they wanted to make a sex change movie. But I also liked that this, when he makes Glen or Glenda. All right, let's go back to that.
Okay.
When he makes Glen or Glenda, the producer wants it in 4 days, right? He wants it shot in 4 days, which is insane, right?
Yeah.
To have a feature length film shot in that amount of time, it almost infers, well, this is the only way Ed Wood knows how to make movies now, you know, because he feels like it's almost, he's setting the standard, like, for how Ed Wood's gonna make movies, right? Like,
Right.
I need it shot quickly. I need it, I need it in 4 days. I make crap. I don't care if it's good, right?
Right.
It's so. I think that's what prompts, Ed Wood to, do a scene, do a shot, one and done. We got it. Let's go, right?
Right.
I don't know if that's really how he learned how to make movies. Was just, you know, begging to make a movie for a low budget production company, them miraculously saying yes, him figuring it out while he's doing it, and then doing it
Yeah.
really quickly, right? Coming up with something, right? And then that's it, right? That's filmmaking. To Ed Wood, right? I love his use of stock footage. He's like, stock footage is useful and, should be used more in movies, and just making up stuff just to fit with the stock footage he already has, right?
Yeah.
Which I liked. It's his sort of like, it's his optimism, and it's his sort of his go-getter attitude, which is just, I have the stock footage. It's got an octopus in it. I guess we're putting an octopus in this movie. So we'll figure it out.
So there we go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What else do you got?
Well, I mean, I don't know if I do have anything else, man. Like, I really enjoyed the movie.
Yeah.
As you said last week, everyone was on point. Of course, Johnny was great. I feel like he really shines the most when he's with Tim. And it was just like last week with Edward Scissorhands. This didn't feel like a Tim Burton movie, but just like with Batman, there are those Burtonisms that kind of shine through a little bit.
Yeah, this one's got a bunch of them because it's got that spooky overtone in some parts, right? Which is just, Tim Burton is just a spooky guy, so it works perfectly, And I can't praise Martin Landau enough. I think he's amazing. Things you need to see him in, because you said you hadn't.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure here. While you list this stuff off,
there is a movie that isn't well received, that is about movies in a way, with Martin Landau, that I love, and it is called The Majestic. It's with Jim Carrey. This is Frank Darabont. It's after Jim
So
Carrey had done the Truman Show, and he's wanting to do another dramatic role, and they did the Majestic, and I think it's good. It's not well received at all. People really don't like it. I do, so that's a good one.
well, I actually have seen another movie of his.
Go ahead. Is it going to be stupid?
It's no,
Okay.
it's going to be another one we're going to talk about later this season. He was in Sleepy Hollow.
Oh, I don't remember him in Sleepy Hollow.
Let's see what he was credited as.
Lisa Marie's in that one too. Just so you know.
Good God, is he at the bottom? Oh, he is uncredited as Peter Van Garrett.
Okay.
See, I don't remember that either, but anyway. Well, buddy, are you ready to wrap up?
I guess so. Yeah, I've sort of run out of things, at least off the top of my head. I can't think of anything else. Again, if you haven't seen it, we hopefully haven't ruined too much of it. Please go see it. You can get a copy at Best Buy, maybe still.
Yeah.
I've had mine for years, so I don't know. I don't know, just I love it. It's a fun, it most times feel good movie, you know. I will end with this, and I don't know if it's true, but I love telling people, and it's a good segue. That Peter Lorre was at Bela Lugosi's funeral, and there was some other actors there. It wasn't nearly as small as the movie made it sound or made it look. Right? We've talked about it. There's a lot of people there. Peter Lorre goes up to the casket and notices that he's in his cape, which is true. He was buried. Bela Lugosi was buried in his Dracula cape. He looks over to the people beside him and he goes, "Should we drive a stake through his heart just in case?" Anyway, I don't know if that's true, but I like the way it sounds, and I hope it's true. So next week, this has been a long time coming, at least for me. This is, as of right now, my favorite movie of all time. Next week
it was just
what?
I was just gonna say, I was gonna ask you what we're doing next week. So
yeah, so next week we are discussing Fritz Lang's 1931 M, starring Peter Lorre.
Yes, as I mentioned after we finished up with Spies last week, this one I have seen. Because when you really started getting me into, and everyone could see, people listening you can't see, but when you got me into the Criterion collection, that was one of the ones you said I had to get. I had to get in. Yeah. And so I remember getting it in, and I was like, all right, what is this movie that Jeremy is just raving about? And I loved it. I thought it was great. And of course, the big thing for me, especially now, it has sound.
Yes, it has sound. A little tease for next week. A little bit of film studies for you. The aspect ratio is sort of squished in a bit, so it's almost a perfect square. Because the soundtrack, like most new technologies, it was big, right? And so the soundtrack being on either side, it was so big that it squishes the aspect ratio a little bit. So that's sort of fun. Think of it like Zach Morris and his cell phone. You know how humongous that thing was? This is sort of the same thing, you know? So it's going to feel a little claustrophobic, which is good because that's what it needs for this film. You can, I believe, still watch it on HBO. I know we never do this, by the way. Why don't we ever tell people where to watch it on our...
well, because I think we forget, and I think we assume that most people probably have it, too.
Yeah, which we shouldn't assume that. People listen to us in Afghanistan or wherever it is. I don't know if they can get Criterions in Afghanistan. Or Iraq or wherever they listen to us. Um, so you can watch on HBO Max. I think still, definitely on iTunes or buy it. You know,
Yeah.
you don't have to get it on the Criterion Collection. It helps because it's cool, but those of you abroad, if you live in a Region B place, you can get it on the Masters of Cinema collection from Eureka, which I had to tell Rain not to buy so he can actually watch the movies, because they are region locked. That's sort of not important, but it is at the same time.
Yeah.
That's about it. I'm excited, very much so. I love this movie very much. Peter Lorre is astounding in it. He's terrifying. And again, yes, there is sound. So it is still in German, but there is sound.
Yeah. I agree. I can't wait to talk about it, man. And can't wait to actually hear a Fritz Lang movie. Hear someone actually speak in a Fritz Lang movie.
Yeah.
But all right, everyone. Well, we hope you enjoyed Ed Wood, and we will see you next week for him.